Hey friends, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about minor major 7 arpeggios. Let's go. Okay, minor major 7 arpeggios are a very cool sound because they're not found in the major scale. They're found in some other scales, so it can kind of get you outside of that major scale harmony. Before we get going though, please make sure you like and subscribe and share this video and all that good stuff. This is going to be the first of a series of 5 videos going over all the different shapes of the minor major 7 arpeggios, and also some just various uses that you can do. The rest of this series is going to be on my Patreon page, so I certainly invite you to go over there and check that out. There's some great knowledge drops going on down there. So, all right, on with the lesson. So minor major 7 arpeggios basically come from 2 different scales, or at least 2 common scales. I'm sure there's some other scales that contain them, but that would be the harmonic minor scale and the melodic minor scale. There are both the 1 chord in each of those scales. So for example, if I was using a D harmonic minor scale, I might use a D minor major 7 arpeggio. Or if I was using, let's say, an A altered scale, A altered is really B flat melodic minor. So B flat melodic minor has a B flat minor major 7 arpeggio. So there's a lot of different uses and cool uses for this, but in this context, I'm going to use it over a dominant 5 chord in a minor key. So I've built up a little backing track that just loops these 2 chords, D minor 7, which is the 1 chord in D minor, obviously, and then the 5 chord, which is just A dominant 7. Okay? So it's just 2 measures back and forth, and there's a number of backing tracks like this on YouTube in different keys. I just did it in the key of D, so I can kind of start low on the neck and work my way up with these various patterns. And I'm using the Cage system as my pattern base. So today we're going to talk about pattern number 1 of a minor major 7 arpeggio. And then I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can use it in the context of a 5-to-1 or 1-to-5 chord movement, which is what my little backing track is. Okay, so let's look at pattern number 1. We're going to do it from the root of D, thinking maybe D harmonic minor. So in the backing track over the D minor chord, probably what I would do is just play D minor scale or D minor pentatonics, D minor blues, anything that kind of, or Aeolian mode if you want to call it that. And then when the A7 chord comes, I'm going to be thinking D harmonic minor. That's a very common use for the harmonic minor scale, is to play it over the 5 chord, right? A7 in this case. So let's take a look at our shape here, and I'll give you some strategies of how to kind of start to use this concept. All right, so if we're in pattern 1, we can look at pattern 1 in the key of D. Here's our basic octave shape. And we have a D minor chord, or a D minor 7th chord. Okay, so that kind of gives us our position. Now you might know that there's a minor arpeggio here. There's a minor triad arpeggio. There's also D minor 7 here. Those are good to know because they give you a little bit of foundation. All we're going to do is add a note or tweak a note and make it a minor major 7. And it is just what it sounds like. So let's say we take our minor triad, 1, flat 3, 5, and then we add the major 7 of D, which is C sharp, which is right underneath that A note. And then we have another D note here with a D minor triad here. So we got root, minor 3rd, 5th, major 7, root, minor 3rd, 5th, and that's about as far as we can go with that particular one. Now coming down, we can also add the major 7 here and the 5th here. So we get something. So that's pattern number 1 of a D minor major 7 arpeggio. Again, it is found in the harmonic minor scale. So a strategy might be to play kind of inside of the scale, just a D minor pentatonic or a D minor blues or a D minor scale, over the 1 chord, and then when the 5 chord comes, then you could play D harmonic minor. You could play the scale, but you could also extract that minor major 7, D minor major 7 over that A7 chord. Now the only difference is strategically you want to outline the sound of that A7 chord. So you probably don't want to land on D. It's one of the notes of the arpeggio, but it's really kind of a sus4 note against the A chord, and it's not really a good spot to land. So notes like the C sharp obviously is great, the major 7th note, or the A is obviously nice because it's the root. Those are 2 chord tones that are of the A chord that are found in that arpeggio. And then the other 2 notes, this would be the F note, which you could think of as a sharp 5. It's almost like an alteration. You can think of it as E sharp, right? So you get this kind of sound, right? And the D you could think of as a sus4 note. So it's kind of like you got 2 chord tones against that A, and then you also have 2 coloration tones, okay? So for me personally, there's a lot of different uses for this particular arpeggio. I'm just putting it into a context that we can kind of practice it in a useful way. If you're playing in a minor blues or something like that, a lot of times you might play a dominant 5 chord. Also, if you're playing more of a Latin style music, a lot of times you're going to play in a minor key, you're going to have a major or a dominant 5 chord, and then you can utilize this arpeggio. Now I will say I do have my pet shapes. You know, there's certain ones that just tend to fall off your fingers a little bit better, and pattern 1 is not one of them. So, but it's good to know. The thing is, you know, about arpeggios is you don't have to play them like Yngwie Malmsteen or Jason Becker. You can just phrase with them and pick and choose notes. And then also, I think a really good strategy is to combine them with the scale. So maybe play just a chunk of the arpeggio. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of play D minor, real simple D minor pentatonic or D minor blues over the D chord. And then when that A7 chord comes up, I'm just going to just kind of go up and down that arpeggio so you can hear the effect that it has. And then we'll kind of dig a little bit deeper into it. So let's check that out. Okay, so the first thing I want to just look at the chords. So here's D minor 7, then here's the A7. One more time, D minor 7, or like this, and then A7. That's going to give me some clues. So just D minor pentatonic to start off with. And then that minor major 7 arpeggio over the A chord. Okay, so what I'm really focusing on there is trying to make the chord changes. So playing real simple to start off with and getting the feel of the cadence of the chord changes. And also just getting the shapes of that minor major 7 under my fingers. I'm not really thinking about speed or anything like that. I'm not even too concerned about being super musical. I just want to get the shape down and start to make some music with it. Now, once again, of course, you could take this particular shape and you can move it up an octave. And actually, it's a little bit more forgiving there because there's not so many big stretches. So you could play it up here. Okay. So what you're also going to want to do is maybe blend that in with the harmonic minor scale. So that's the source that you're taking it from, right? You're taking it from D harmonic minor. So if I was playing it up here or down here, doesn't matter, it's the same thing, right? I want to also check out where my D harmonic minor scale is. So then I want to kind of blend it in. I can just use little pieces of that arpeggio and blend it in the scale and just get some more interesting lines. That way you're not playing just an arpeggio or just a scale. You're kind of blending these two things together. So let me do a little bit of that and check that out. Okay, so there I was just, taking little chunks of that arpeggio and blending it in with that harmonic minor scale. So basically playing over the D, D minor blues, D minor pentatonic, D minor scale, and blending that in with the D minor major 7 on the A7 chord, and also adding in some of those scale tones from the harmonic minor scale. So that's the way I prefer it, especially with this particular pattern, because I don't find personally this particular pattern falls under my fingers nicely. So adding in some of those other notes gives you some other colorations. Also, it might physically solve a little bit of phrasing problems that you may have with any particular shape. It's really important to get the sound of this into your ear. So don't worry about playing too fast or anything like that. Just try to have some fun. The track is only at 90 beats per minute. Just play eighth notes. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Now, one other little secret weapon that's hidden inside of this minor major 7 arpeggio is an augmented triad. Okay, so you have actually an A augmented triad, or you can think of it as a C sharp augmented or an F augmented. Augmented triads are symmetrical. So right here I have this A augmented triad. And what that does is it omits the D note. And the D note is that sus4 note, which is not a bad note, but it kind of leaves you hanging a little bit. So it can be a little bit different of a coloration that maybe you want to avoid. You don't want to play all the time. So you can just kind of knock it out of that arpeggio and play this little augmented triad. I really like that sound a lot. It's a little bit more angular. Just that less one note, that D note, just makes it probably a little bit nicer against the chord to my ear. And of course, you could also blend that in with the harmonic minor scale too. So let's check that out a little bit. Yeah, that sounds really cool to me. So you can also blend in that little augmented triad, and the augmented triads are symmetrical, so we can move those around and also use them in other patterns too, as we'll get to in the future. All right, so there's some ideas of how to use the minor major 7th arpeggio in the context of a harmonic minor scale. This is a really nice sound, and again, for me personally, some of the other shapes are a little bit more physically fitting to my hands. So in this particular shape, I have a tendency to want to play that augmented triad, or just play little pieces of that arpeggio and blend it in with the scale, which I personally think is more tasty anyway. Now there's another place where we could use the minor major 7 arpeggio. I'm going to stick with pattern number 1, right? That's kind of the theme of this particular video, is just kind of getting down pattern number 1 of our minor major 7 arpeggio. Now another scale that we could use over that A7 chord is the A altered scale. So the A altered scale is really B flat melodic minor, and the first chord in B flat melodic minor is a B flat minor major 7. So now if we kind of shift this up to here, here's our B flat, we could play the same exact fingering, right? Okay, so here's our A note, here's our A7 chord. And you can just kind of slide up a half step and play that minor major 7 arpeggio. Now the good thing to do here is to realize that you're actually playing in the key of D. So you want to see where your D chord is. That's your 1 chord. You want to see where your D minor scale is. But then when that A7 chord comes, you can play that. You could even blend some of that in with the harmonic minor scale. So let's see what that sounds like. It gives us a little bit different flavor, but in a cool way, and it just gives us another option to use that particular arpeggio. Let's check it out. Okay, so that's another really great way to use it. And of course, this minor major 7 also has that augmented triad in it, right? So I can also use that augmented triad. So